Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series in which we discuss and briefly analyze the important news of the day. Let's have a look at today's main headlines. Directions regulating firecrackers apply to all the states in the country, says the Supreme Court. Global Landscape of Climate Finance 2023 report released by the Climate Policy Initiative. The World Health Organization releases the Global Tuberculosis Report 2023. The Software Technology Parks of India releases the report From Startup to Scale Up, the Role of Digital India and Opportunities Ahead. Bihar's Caste and Economic Survey report tabled in state legislature. Scientists have discovered the oldest black hole dating back to 470 million years after the Big Bang. Starting with the first main news, the directions regulating firecrackers apply to all the states in the country, says the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has clarified that its 2021 directions against the use of barium and banned chemicals in firecrackers are now applicable across the country to curb the air and noise pollution during the festive periods. In 2021, the Supreme Court stated that there is no total ban on the use of firecrackers and that only those firecrackers were banned that contained barium salts. Apart from barium, other compounds like aluminium, sulfur dioxide, copper, among others, also have harmful effects on overall health and well-being. They can cause pollution, health issues like dermatitis, thyroid, and other skin and respiratory problems. Having said this, let's have a look at the concept of green crackers. They cause 30% less air pollution and don't contain hazardous elements like barium nitrate. Toxic metals in traditional crackers are replaced with the less hazardous compounds. They are permissible following the directions issued by the Supreme Court in 2018. In India, the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research has developed green crackers, namely SWAS, which stands for Safe Water Releaser. It suppresses dust released by releasing water vapor in the air. Another one is STAR or Safe Thermite Cracker, which does not comprise potassium nitrate and sulfur and emits reduced particulate matter disposal and reduced sound intensity. The third one is SUFFLE, which has the minimum usage of aluminium and uses magnesium instead. Also, there are certain initiatives taken by the government to control air and noise pollution. The National Clean Air Program, which seeks to achieve 40% reduction in concentrations of PM10 by 2025-26. The Graded Response Action Plan for Delhi and the Noise Pollution Rules 2000 to reduce noise levels at night by restricting firecrackers and loudspeakers. Moving on, the Global Landscape of Climate Finance 2023 report has been released by the Climate Policy Initiative. Before we see the key highlights of the report, let's first understand what exactly is climate finance. It refers to financing from public, private, and alternative sources that seeks to support mitigation and adaptation actions to address climate change. Mitigation tackles the causes of climate change, whereas adaptation tackles the effects of climate change. Coming back to the key highlights of the report, the average annual climate finance flows reached almost $1.3 trillion in 2021-22, nearly doubling than the previous year. Plus, China, US, Europe, Brazil, Japan and India received 90% of the increased climate finance. However, the climate finance is uneven across sectors as energy and transport continues to attract majority of the flows. Also, private actors provided 49% of the total climate finance and the adaptation finance continues to lag with 98% coming from the public sector. In this regard, there are certain recommendations. Firstly, reforming the international financial institutions with rules and incentives aligned with climate needs. Additionally, leveraging concessional finance to expand private flows and mainstreaming climate adaptation and resilience into the financial systems is needed. Plus, phasing out unabated fossil fuels through a just transition, making climate finance data widely available and accessible, along with work across countries to harmonize and enhance interoperability is needed. Before we conclude this news, let's have a look at some of the global level initiatives for climate finance. These include the Global Environment Facility, Adaptation Fund, Special Climate Change Fund, and the Green Climate Fund, to name a few. In another news, the World Health Organization releases the Global Tuberculosis Report 2023. Before we have a look at the report, let's first understand what exactly is TB. It is caused by Bacillus mycobacterium tuberculosis, which most often affects the lungs. Most common medications to treat TB include isoniazid, rifampin, ethambutol, pyrazinamide, to name a few. Currently, the BCG vaccine is the only licensed vaccine available for TB prevention. TB spreads from person to person through air, and the TB risk factors include diabetes, HIV infection, undernutrition, and tobacco use. Coming back to the key findings, at the global level, the reported number of people who were newly diagnosed with TB was 7.5 million in 2022. TB remained the world's second leading cause of death in 2022 after COVID-19. Also, the net reduction of TB incidence from 2015 to 2022 was 8.7%, which is far from the WHO's End TB strategy milestone of 50% reduction by 2025. Plus, only about 2 in 5 people with drug-resistant TB accessed treatment in 2022. Coming to the India-specific findings, herein India, Indonesia and Philippines collectively accounted for nearly 60% of reduction in the number of people newly diagnosed with TB in the year 2020-21. Overall, India has 27% of the world's TB cases. Before we conclude this news, let's have a look at the steps taken to prevent tuberculosis in India. These include the National Strategic Plan for Tuberculosis Elimination 2017 to 2025, TB Mukt Panchayat Abhiyan Initiative, and the Nikshay Poshan Yojana for nutritional support to TB patients.
Moving on, the Software Technology Parks of India has released a report titled From Startup to Scale Up, the Role of Digital India and Opportunities Ahead. STPI is an organization under METI engaged in promoting software export and nurturing tech startup ecosystem. Indian startup ecosystem is the third largest in the world, and as of October 2023, there are a total of 1.14 lakh startups recognized by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. More than 50% of these startups are from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Coming back to the news, the report explores the relation between Digital India and startup ecosystem. Digital India program was launched in the year 2015 by METI to transform India into a digitally empowered society and knowledge economy. It provides a boost to businesses and startups through its focus on 3 core components: digital infrastructure, e-governance, and universal digital literacy. It has 9 pillars including broadband highways, universal access to mobile connectivity, public internet access, e-governance, e-Kranti, information for all, electronics manufacturing, IT for jobs, and lastly early harvest programs. So how has Digital India impacted the startup ecosystem in India? According to the report, India Stack and Jam Trinity, that is Jan Dhan accounts, Aadhaar cards, mobile numbers, have created a conducive environment for startups to use public digital good. India's 4G infrastructure now covers more than 98% of the population and enables larger use base for internet services by startups. Digital India has created multiple enablers of growth for startups like collaborative ecosystem, digital infrastructure, and simplified regulatory processes. Now, the report also discusses the contribution of startups in empowering Digital India. Startups power Digital India with job opportunities, empowered skills, and digital solutions for inclusive growth. Additionally, startups have directly and indirectly interacted with pillars of Digital India, leveraging technology, empowering communities, and driving innovation. Lastly, the report lists some of the emerging areas for startups in India, which include government infrastructure initiatives like Open Network and incubation centers, tapping rural marketplace potential through online marketplace and formalization of industries, and technological trends like appification and advanced computing technologies. Moving on to the next news, Bihar's Caste and Economic Survey report was tabled in the state legislature. The report describes the economic condition of 215 scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, backward classes, and extremely backward classes. Let's take a look at some of the key revelations of the survey. The report found that 1 in 3 families in Bihar is living in poverty, with a monthly income of rupees 6,000 or less. Further, more than 50 lakh people of Bihar are living as immigrants in other states. The survey has shed light on caste-based census in India. So let's take a brief look at India's history of caste census. The process of census in India began in 1872 and all the censuses till 1931 had various details with regard to specific regions, communities, caste and economic groups. These censuses measured the progress of different households in India. In 1941, caste-based data was collected but not published. Every census in independent India from 1951 to 2011 has published data on scheduled castes and scheduled tribes but not on other castes. The socio-economic and caste census was conducted in the year 2011 by the center, but its results were withheld. So what is the need for such caste-based censuses? They can help in providing the latest data for policy making, identify the poor and ailing sections, and alter and improvise the reservation parameters. However, there are certain concerns associated with caste-based census. For example, it can strengthen caste divisions and perpetuate the caste system. Also, defining caste is a difficult process. In our next news, scientists have discovered the oldest black hole, dating back to 470 million years after the Big Bang. The black hole is about 13.2 billion years old. The universe itself is 13.7 million years old. So first let's discuss what exactly are black holes and why is it important to study them. A black hole is a place in space where gravity pulls so much that even light cannot get out. They are formed when massive stars die or there is a direct collapse of gases. Studying them helps us to understand things like how matter behaves in extremely strong gravitational fields, how fast the universe is expanding, and how the universe has evolved. So how are black holes detected? NASA's James Webb Space Telescope and Chandra X-ray Observatory are used to make observations with the gravitational lensing technique in the galaxy named UHZ1. Gravitational lensing occurs when massive objects distort and magnify light from objects behind them. These objects then act as cosmic telescopes and make distant galaxies appear brighter. Talking about James Webb Telescope, it is the most powerful astronomical observatory ever sent into space and it sees the universe in the infrared. It was launched in the year 2021 in the second Lagrange point or L2 around 1 million miles away from the Earth. The Chandra X-ray Observatory is a telescope deployed in the year 1999 and is designed to observe X-rays from high-energy regions of the universe such as the remnants of exploded stars. Now coming back to the news, the black hole in galaxy UHZ1 is a supermassive black hole almost 10 times bigger than the black hole in our galaxy. It weighs anywhere from 10 to 100% of the mass of all the stars in its galaxy and it is considered a quasar since it's actively growing and the gas is very bright. Let's have a look at today's personality in news, which is C.V. Raman. He is in news as the nation celebrated his 135th birth anniversary on 7th November. Born in Tiruchirappalli in Tamil Nadu, he founded the Indian Journal of Physics as well as the Indian Academy of Science, which is registered as a society under the Societies Registration Act of 1934. He won the Nobel Prize in Physics in the year 1930 and Bharat Ratna in 1954. National Science Day is celebrated every year to commemorate his discovery of Raman effect. The Raman effect is a phenomenon when a stream of light passes through a liquid. A fraction of light scattered by the liquid is of a different color. This happens due to a change in wavelength of light that occurs when a light beam is deflected by molecules. Talking about his ethical values, he exhibited scientific rigor, fortitude, excellence, and honesty of purpose.
As we conclude today's main news, let's go through some quick updates. NATO has announced the formal suspension of the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe in response to Russia's pullout from the treaty. The treaty was signed in the year 1990. Koradwani program is being organized by the Kerala State Literacy Mission in 8 coastal and tribal districts. It aims to instill scientific aptitude, independent thinking, secularism, democratic spirit, and awareness about rights towards shaping independent citizens. India has successfully test-fired the Pralay missile. It has been developed by the Defence Research and Development Organization for deployment along the line of actual control and the line of control. The International Organization for Migration has reported around 6.9 million people are internally displaced in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Aditya L1's payload, named High Energy L1 Orbiting X-ray Spectrometer, has captured the first glimpse of solar flares. Solar flare is an intense burst of radiation coming from the release of magnetic energy from the sun. Euclid mission shares its first full-color image of the universe. The mission is built and operated by the European Space Agency and was launched in 2023. A 3,000-year-old Iron Age geoglyph circle was discovered in Telangana. Geoglyphs are a form of prehistoric rock art created on the surface of laterite plateaus. Recently, a batter had to walk back before facing a single ball after he was timed out for the first time in the international cricket across all formats. As per the International Cricket Council's playing conditions for the World Cups, the new batter must be ready to face the bowler within 2 minutes of the fall of the previous wicket. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to the test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answer to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.